Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your July 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Raina here, and this is a video or an audio podcast for Sagittarius Sun and Sagittarius Rising. I don't say this enough, that it's also for the rising sign. And the month of July, thankfully, is going to be a little bit less full of a lot of transits. However, we do have another eclipse. And we also have Saturn going back to Capricorn. And this happens on the very first day of the month. So for Sag, Capricorn is the second house of earned income. And this can be, this is going to be something that you deal with until the end of this year. So just keep that in mind, that whatever is going on in that particular house for you and what happened before in this area may need more work. And for some people, there's that sense of, we finally got rid of Saturn, get rid of this kind of millstone around our neck, because I'm a Sag too, and now it's coming back into that house of earning potential. Well, you can look at Saturn as the bad guy, but if you see it, especially when it's retrograding, so it's not going to be as, you could say it's not going to be as intense because it's not doing its thing, and it might even be quite lax in one way of looking at it because it's retrograding. It's more, to me, on an internal level of kind of demanding of you to look within for what this transit represents in general. So between now and the end of September, which is the time when Saturn goes direct, what I will ask of Sagittarius is to play around with the ideas of what you can do to structure your finances. And it can be as simple as being more intentional. I know as a Sag, and I have Jupiter in the second house, that I like the feeling of just being able to spend whatever I want. And yet, and this is also backed up in law of attraction, where you're not supposed to be so fear-based about money and things like that, and being a little bit more, I even back many years ago, probably like 20 years ago, I remember reading Deepak Chopra, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, and these were some of those same principles of law of attraction, which one of them was circulating money. And that was kind of like an interesting concept to read about because I had never heard of it, and I was the kind of person that really felt it was important. I was always told it was important to save money, and this concept kind of flew in the face of that. So that's all well and good, but I think there has to be balance. Remember that Sag in the tarot, we're represented by the Temperance card. And so we have to kind of find that balance between the spiritual and the material. And the way that we do that is by being intentional and saying, when we buy something, does this advance my life? Does this serve me in some way? It can be anything. And even like if we have our own ways of, our own values about certain things that we're buying, Sagittarius tend to be into causes, and certain things may go against your values and you're still buying them anyway. The second house is about your values also. It's not just about money. And so having Saturn here can really firm that up and make you aware and make you kind of dedicated to upholding certain values. And that in turn can build your wealth, because Sages and all fire signs tend to be impulsive and living in the moment, which of course the now moment is all that we know and have, but still sometimes not realizing that there's a difference between being spontaneous and being frivolous and wasteful and things like that. So Saturn is totally against waste, and Jupiter, tends to be excessive. So that's happening, and then on the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse at 13 degrees of Capricorn, so that's going to be in that house as well. So this house is activated for Sag, even though you have the Sun and Mercury retrograding as the month begins in Cancer. And this is in the opposite house, the 8th house. So this is other people's money and resources, where the Sun and Mercury retrograde are. Now, Mercury retrograde in the 8th house can be perhaps some kind of, something comes up that has to do, some communication comes up, or you're hearing from somebody from the past, but having to do with a matter concerning money. The one that I always think about, first and foremost, are inheritances with the 8th house. Death plus other people's money. So the 8th house is also the house of death. And so these kinds of things can be, if something was not fully resolved, then it comes up for review. It comes up for some further discussion, or maybe some kind of snafu in paperwork that is related to this. And these kinds of things are temporary if they are irritations or some sort of something getting screwed up. It's not obviously going to be lasting too long, but it can be, with the 8th house, something connected to a particular healing modality. The 8th house can be occult matters, like the tarot and astrology fit into this house, but I would even say things like shamanic healing. This is kind of the phoenix rising from the ashes, and this is where we had, I'm pretending that this is in the past tense, but for me it's coming up. The phoenix rising from the ashes is the solar eclipse in that 8th house. And that is significant because we're going to have a black moon, which is interesting. So a black moon is when you have 2 new moons in 1 month. And the solar eclipse was at 0 degrees of Cancer on June 21st. And then a month later, we have a black moon at 28 degrees of Cancer. And did I say June 20th? I mean July 20th. So this is going to be in that house as well. And actually, with the solar eclipse, because it is at 0 degrees, it is going to be, for the vast majority of Sages, actually in that 7th house of committed partnership. And that can have, I think that can be great for even meeting somebody who becomes your mate, or planning a wedding, because the black moon is a time of, according to what I read, the true beginning, that there might be a false start at the first new moon. And what I have been saying in this month's readings is that I don't necessarily think that pertains to this particular set of new moons in Cancer, because the one on June 21st is a solar eclipse. And so it's hardly a garden variety new moon. And so because it packs an extra punch, my feeling is that it is going to be a new beginning for sure. And this is just yet more of the same. So because a lot of astrologers use the unequal house system, it's very possible to have one sign occupying two houses. And I think sometimes even three houses, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've even had that, but definitely two houses. So you may not know what these are. You can always generate your own chart. But if you would like a reading, like a natal chart reading, check my link below for that, because that may be something that is affecting you, both of these eclipses in two different areas. I mean, oh, I don't want to confuse you. The first one is, the one in June is a solar eclipse. The second one is, quote unquote, only a new moon, but a late degree of Cancer. And this is actually considered a 2.5 year new cycle, because the next one won't happen for 2.5 years. So if you are intentional about this, Sag, you can actually experience some kind of goal that you set into motion around this time, that, who knows, maybe you will reap the rewards 2.5 years from now. So that's always fun. I always keep things nice and loose, because I don't feel that it's ever good to be too caught up in anything outside of yourself, including astrological transits. But even if you look at it from the symbolic sense, you can still launch things because of these types of dates, and use that in a way as symbolism for your new beginnings. So again, because this is in the 8th house, this can be like kind of this rebirth, and double rebirth. But like I said, actually, forget the first one will be in the 7th house. But that can be a rebirth for a relationship that you currently have. Maybe you're going into a new phase. And then that one at the end of the sign of Cancer on the 20th of July, that is a true rebirth. I like that very much for us. Mars is in Aries all month long, and Aries is a fellow fire sign, and this is fantastic, especially since it's going to fall in a very fun place, the 5th house. So the 5th house is a house of pleasure. It is a fire-ruled house, being the house of Leo. So this is a double fire energy. So I suspect that a lot of Sagittarius will be very happy in July to have this energy. If you're listening before the 27th of June, this will be this will be in play from that June 27th date, and all through the month of July. And another thing that's great about that is that the sun goes into Leo on the 22nd. So from that date, we have another fire influence coming from the 9th house, which is Sag's house. So the sun is going to be in the house that we rule, the 9th house, and that will be almost like having the sun in our sign. It's almost like a second, solar return, if you look at it that way. And so we're getting it from both sides. And Mars in the 5th is a playful spirit. It can be very randy. So, the 5th house can be the house of recreational sex. And so this can be Sagittarius who are single may be tempted to have an affair for the sake of the sex. I was trying to find a euphemism for sex. This can also be like almost like competitive sports. If that's something that you have coming down the pike in July, or even late June. This is the house of creativity, so you may find that you're just on fire, that you're really motivated to be, to create if you're an artist, Sag. And so I'm very stoked about that myself. And in general, you're just going to go for it when it comes to all fun things. This is a house of hobbies. Like I said, pleasure, which can be amusements as well. All kinds of, theater and concerts. And, depending, I think where I live, which is in the state of Illinois, I think we're going to be hopefully in phase 4 by then, which means that we're going to have a lot more stuff opened up, because then we can actually take advantage of it. Online concerts don't cut it, or something like that. But hopefully you'll be able to have more freedom, because Sagittarius love freedom, and that means pursuing these kinds of hobbies and entertainment, if you will. I think that that's about it that I wanted to cover, so I hope that you enjoyed this, Sag. I'm getting stoked, actually, so I hope you are too. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.